There we go. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic Friday. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood prevention specialist with Leaders Advancing and Helping Communities. Welcome to session 4 of our Botvin Life Skills Winter Series. And so last week we covered goal setting and decision making, and today we'll talk about one of the biggest decisions that we make is the kind of media that we consume and kind of how our decisions are impacted by media and how our health can be impacted by that. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive into today's session. And so what exactly is media? So when we talk about media, what are we technically talking about? So media is, at the very basic level, a form of communication. So media, the word media is actually the plural form for the word medium. So whereas medium would be a channel through which information is shared, or one medium, two or more media are different channels in which information can be shared. And so a good example would be if you're having an in-person conversation with somebody, the medium of conversation would be the space between you and the person. Or if it's something over the phone, whether it's a phone call or a text message, the media you'd be using is your phone or SMS or iMessage, WhatsApp, whatever it is, radio waves, and how it's transmitted to the other person. So essentially that's where the word media comes from. And primarily it's important because it allows us to communicate with each other, with the world, and kind of know what's going on different parts of the world. And this can help keep us connected to each other. Now, using different forms of media, groups, people, and organizations or marketing agencies are able to share ideas or products with the general population, or if there's a specific message or product, it can be relayed to a specific target audience, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. So first, we want to talk about the different forms of media. So we have the traditional forms of media, or the old school forms, as we like to call it. And these are things like broadcast or print media, whether it's television, radio, music, or movies being broadcast through the air, or print media that's printed on paper or notebooks or notepads, like newspapers, books, magazines, or even billboards. Would fall under traditional media. They're getting a message across in a traditional route. And then we have modern media or new age media. And these are things like the internet, specifically email or podcasts or YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, Hulu, all of these different kind of outlets that allow information and mainly entertainment to be shared with a consumer, which would be you. Now, we want to think about the type of media that we use on a daily basis for this next activity, and then think about how long you use each medium for. And so I'm gonna do a quick self-inventory for myself. So I generally use things like YouTube, Instagram. I watch a lot of Hulu or Netflix, mainly streaming services. That's good. That's good enough for now. And so I would say I use YouTube I had my phone do an analytics thing to see how long my screen time was. And so YouTube would be anywhere between 5 to 7 hours, Instagram around 3 hours, and then Hulu and Netflix, I'm underestimating completely, about 8 hours. And so that's generally what a media log is taking a self-inventory of how long you're using media. And I'm using about, roughly 18 or so hours on media, which seems like a lot, but it's generally a really good way to stay connected with the world, to stay up to date with everything going on around you, especially in COVID pandemic era where going outside is kind of risky. And so staying indoors and learning about the world is kind of a neat advantage to media. And so The main thing we want to know is the primary purpose of media is generally to communicate, to allow us to communicate. And through this communication, every medium we use, Netflix or YouTube or whatever you use, can provide us with things like entertainment, can influence our opinions. This is important to think about, and it can allow us to interact with others, and we can even learn a lot from media, probably more from traditional schooling, because there's an infinite amount of information that can be found online. Now, when we were talking about target audience, the reason this is important is because when we talk about consumers of media, a lot of marketing agencies and organizations that create advertisements are targeting a specific group of people who might have shared interests or ideas. Teenagers are generally the biggest consumers of media, and so teenagers would usually be the target audience for most of these media messages that would be blasted out by corporations or marketing agencies. Now, generally, hopefully it's useful stuff that they're promoting or advertising, but for the most part, some of these messages could be negative, they could be deceitful, or they could even kind of damage our health in one way or another. And so that's why it's really important to be critical of what exactly is being communicated to us. But we have the advantage of being able to decide which type of these media messages we allow ourselves to be exposed to, and I will touch on that a little bit in a second as well. So what we'll do now is do a quick ad analysis. So I'm going to walk you through kind of how to look at an advertisement from a subjective point of view and kind of analyze what exactly the advertisement is trying to tell you. Who is this advertisement catered for? Who's the target audience? Or whether the message is a positive or a negative message, and what kind of influence it can have on people. So let's get started. Our first one is a very simple Juul advertisement, and really just two words. Juul vaporized, hashtag over here, and the website, and a disclaimer over here, probably talking about the nicotine in the products. And so let's see, what is this ad trying to convey? Now, it's a little bit hard to tell because specifically vape advertisements are very simple, very simplified, because they don't want to tell you, hey, go out and buy this product, which could be damaging to your health. But they do want to make it seem appealing enough to where you look at the ad and you go, oh, okay, that looks cool. It's colorful, it's flashy, it looks like a really small, cool USB device. And there's this young person around my age who's vaping it, and it says vaporized. And so the ad is trying to convey that young people generally vape, and they generally are kind of standing in a cool stance like this and vaping. And so that could appeal to a younger person who wants to feel cool. And that, in this specific picture, we just discussed the target audience as well, which would be young teens, people who are generally around the age of the young lady who's using the product in the advertisement. That's also something you want to look out for. Sometimes an advertisement will use a celebrity or an influencer or just some random Joe Schmo to take a picture using the product, and then they'll say, this celebrity uses this product, even if the celebrity has never used the product in their life. And so they would use that as kind of a way to target specific people who might think that celebrity or that person is cool. Now, this specific advertisement, from your opinion, do you think this is a positive or a negative message? It's pretty much a negative message. When we talk about vapes and we kind of know the damage that vapes can cause to our health, not to mention the addictive potential of the nicotine in them, because there's a lot of nicotine in these things versus a single cigarette. And so it's generally a negative message because it's promoting something that could be toxic to your health and something that could pretty much addict you for life. And so that's something you want to look out for too, is the product in the advertisement. Is this going to be a healthy product or a beneficial product for me? And the last question is kind of more of a critical thinking question. What kind of influence do you think this advertisement would have on people? So we brushed on it a little bit when we started talking about this, but it's going to generally influence a younger person who might match the age demographic of the young lady here, and they'll be influenced to want to try this jewel thing and see what all the hype is about. And so that's one thing also that you want to think about is what influence can this have on people, and could this potentially have a influence on me? Am I going to see an advertisement like this and go, oh, I kind of want to try that? So really something you want to look out for. Our next advertisement is an ad by BMW, and it's a public safety announcement. And so let's just dive right into it. What is the ad trying to convey? So if you read the advertisement, there's somebody with a prosthetic leg over here. And the caption is, "Spare parts for humans are not as original as those for cars." And the main message is down here: don't drink and drive. And so, a very powerful advertisement showing that, an accident caused by drinking and driving could potentially cost you a limb, and then you would have to have a prosthetic for the rest of your life, which is not going to be as original as the limb that you lost. And that's essentially the message behind this advertisement. And when we think about the target audience, we want to think about, drinking and driving. Okay, so somebody who's drinking would hopefully be over the age of 21. So that would be part of the target audience. And somebody who's driving also. And a third group of the target audience is somebody who drinks and thinks it would be a good idea to drive as well. And so really the target audience is people who are of the legal age of drinking, who might be driving, and who might be in a situation where they might drive under the influence of alcohol. So what does this make this kind of message? It makes it a very positive message because it's trying to prevent somebody from hurting themselves before they make a unconscious decision to drive under the influence. And so I would say this is a very positive message. As for the influence that it will have on people, when we talk about alcohol specifically, it lowers your inhibitions. And I doubt with these lowered inhibitions that an advertisement is going to influence somebody to not drink and drive. But at the same time, I am hopeful that if somebody was going to a party or a club or something, and they were to see this advertisement prior to drinking, they would set up a designated driver or have a relative come pick them up afterwards. And so I think that would be a positive influence on somebody's health. Our third advertisement is Amigos ad. High times with the three kings of hip hop. That's a play on words because they are passing a blunt around which contains cannabis. And so right away we can tell that the ad is trying to convey this kind of cool image surrounding cannabis use and surrounding hip hop. And it generally shows three individuals who became wildly successful in the hip hop game, who are wearing all these chains and expensive jewelry and also smoking cannabis. And so Rolling Stone is, in a sense, pro marijuana and trying to show that, it's not that big a deal. But it generally is. For the most part, smoking cannabis is not going to get you to a high level of fame. It'll just probably get you to a high level, but that's about it. So the target audience for this ad would generally be anybody who reads the Rolling Stone issues, or anybody who's a Migos fan, or anybody who's a cannabis proponent, or somebody who's pro-cannabis. That would generally be the target audience. And I would say that this carries a negative message with it. It's kind of a misleading message because there is more than enough evidence that even though cannabis consumption can't be that damaging, it also can't be that beneficial to where it'll get you to a place of success. In fact, in some cases, or in most cases, it could hinder your potential for success or slow you down. And so I don't think it would have that great of an influence on people because of it promoting something that is potentially not all that great for your health. Our fourth advertisement is a 1-866 New Long hotline advertisement. So this is trying to promote a smoking cessation or quitting smoking plan. And the advertisement says a cheaper way of looking smoking hot, quit, ready to be tobacco free. And then they provide a number with a resource for tobacco cessation. And so the ad is trying to convey that the damage caused by cigarette smoke can generally affect the way a person looks. Of course, we know that cigarette smoke affects our lungs, it affects our health, but it can also affect our physical appearance. And in a lot of cases, that's important to people, right? You know, we don't want our skin to be that wrinkly, and we don't want our eyes to be pale, and we don't want our skin or our teeth to be yellow. And so the target audience for this would be mainly people who value their physical appearance, who don't want the toxic chemicals in cigarettes to destroy or deteriorate their health from the outside or the inside. But in this ad specific kind of message, it's the outside, the physical appearance that gets affected by it. I would say this is a positive message because it's providing a resource for somebody who may be addicted to tobacco or nicotine to quit. However, I also think it could be negative because although there is some damage to our physical appearance when we smoke, the priority really should be the damage to our health, to our lungs, and to every organ in our body that can be affected by the 65 to 70 carcinogens or cancer-causing compounds in cigarettes. But I do think this would have a good influence on people. I think somebody looking at this who hasn't smoked before would get kind of a confirmation that, okay, maybe smoking is not all that great. I don't want to get wrinkly skin. I don't want my eyes to be pale like that. I don't want my teeth to be yellow, etc., etc. Let's see. So we'll do this advertisement and then we'll go ahead and wrap up this presentation. So we have Health Magazine advertising Jessica Alba, and the biggest text you can see, the kind of attention grabber of this advertisement, is the Slim for Life, 7 Secrets to Lasting Weight Loss. And so this ad is trying to convey all these different ways to lasting weight loss and burning calories and looking happy and in control and looking, per these standards of beauty. And now, of course, the target audience for this would be, mainly young girls or women in general who might have, a body image that's not as great as they want it to be, and so they might feel like they need to be slim or they need to look a certain way to feel beautiful, which is not true, but they might feel that way. And so the target audience for that would be that specific group of people. And I personally think it's a negative message. Not only is this picture of Jessica Alba probably a little bit touched up and photoshopped, but being healthy and being slim aren't exactly synonymous. I mean, being skinnier obviously be a little bit healthier, but that shouldn't be the standard for being healthy. The standard for being healthy, it should be eating healthy and exercising. It shouldn't be just looking slim and having secret weight loss tips. But I do think when I think of an influence that this could have on people, I don't think it's a great influence, especially if somebody who's a little bit on the insecure side might look at this advertisement and feel a little bit worse about themselves, and so that can be a bad influence. Or it could be a good influence. Maybe that same person can look at this advertisement and go, oh, well, you know what, I want to look like that, so I'm going to start exercising and I'm going to start eating healthy. And so it could be looked at from both angles. I know I said I was going to wrap up, but I do want to talk about this as well. This is a Nike ad, and now Nike is kind of famous for doing this, where they'll get celebrities or famous public figures to wear their product in an advertisement. So specifically, this advertisement is trying to convey that this specific brand of shoes, the Vapor 8s, can give you explosive speed. So a lot of ads have this idea that a certain product is going to give you a quality. Maybe it's going to make you faster, it's going to make you stronger. That's where the deceit comes in. Especially if they have a celebrity athlete on the cover of this advertisement, you might think, oh, the athlete might be using this product and that's why they're where they're at. In reality, the athlete probably never used the product and only got paid a really gorgeous sum of money to take this picture. And so that's where it could be misleading. Now, the target audience for this would specifically be athletic people, or people who might be looking for new shoes or might be into exercising. Is this a positive or a negative message? I would say both. I would say it's a positive message because Nike does make some really good shoes, really comfortable shoes, especially for things like running and exercise. But I also think it's a negative message in that it's kind of giving the idea that these shoes are going to affect your speed at all. In reality, they're probably not going to. I mean, speed comes from endurance training and practice. It's not going to come from the insoles and the shoes. Lastly, I think this would have a pro-athletic influence on people, and so somebody who's maybe not an athlete who looks at this goes, oh, I want to get the Vapor 8s, and then they'll get the Vapor 8s and they'll feel like, oh wow, I feel good in these, let me go for a walk or a run, or let me start working out. And then so it could lead down to that avenue. But it's really good to be careful when it comes to these advertisements, because in some cases it could be advertising a product that isn't necessarily good for your health, but there could be an athlete or a celebrity figure that you respect who's using the product, and so that could influence you to have a positive outlook on that otherwise unhealthy product. And so as a quick wrap up, like we discussed, there are multiple forms of media, and they all fall under either the traditional old school category of media or the modern new age categories. But the main purpose of all of these is to allow us to communicate with each other and with the world. This allows us to send and receive messages to specific target audiences or people, and it can help influence people's decisions and thoughts. Advertisements, or ads for short, are a type of media designed to influence a target audience to buy or use a product or service, or maybe even think a specific way. And so when we learn to be critical and consider the messages behind advertisements, we're able to avoid being promoted toxic and unhealthy products, or falling into negative thought patterns, or being pushed towards certain ideas through media. So it's really important to be able to recognize these negative messages. Do not allow yourself to be deceived by a message that's promoting something that could be negative or unhealthy, regardless who's on the cover of that message. Lastly, and I think I touched on this briefly earlier in the presentation, a lot of websites have functions that allow you to choose what exactly shows up on your newsfeed or what you're in contact with, and it allows you to block certain types of media. And so using options like hide this post or unfollow or I don't want to see this, these are kind of the front line that you can use to protect your health and protect yourself from these advertisers trying to reach out to you and push their agenda or push their product on you. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next week. Take care.